This is CounselCast, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy, your marketing co-counsel. In every episode, I discuss marketing topics with experts who answer your questions and help your law firm achieve next-level results. Here's today's guest.
I'm TJ Robertson. I've been doing SEO since 2009. In 2014, I started working with someone who had just started their agency, and we grew that over 11 years. But something started happening around 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
something called ChatGPT came out. And that has changed things for me. Yeah, I've always been kind of interested in AI, but I think we all got kind of hit in the face with it around the end of 2022. And I quickly realized that the founder of the agency I was with was not on the same page as me. I kept trying to tell him that things are going to change really fast.
Yeah.
Both in how we work and in what our goals should be for our clients. And he just didn't have that same urgency. I put a whole PowerPoint presentation together, try to say, this is how we need to change really fast.
Yeah.
Or we can't keep charging $500 for a blog post.
Yes.
And he was unfazed by it. He wanted to wait and see what other marketing agencies did. And so finally, it took me a little too long, but May 1st of this year, I decided to start my own agency and just focus on how AI can make digital marketing more efficient, and ultimately how I think people should stop caring so much about ranking in traditional search.
Yes.
And start caring about showing up in algorithms, including large language models.
Awesome. Okay. TJ Robertson, thank you so much for being here. I'll drip the name of your agency in, but I want to mention it real quick now. It's TJ Digital, right? And obviously we'll have links to all of your social media platforms as well as your website on the show page. But today we are going to talk about that mysterious something that's not so mysterious because it's kind of peppered into every conversation these days, I feel like. But the title for today's show is How Can Your Law Firm Rank #1 in AI Search? So I just told TJ a minute ago that I was just on the Clio summer camp webinar talking about AI search. And I feel like this is the topic. Like, this is all anybody's talking about. Do you remember during COVID, like where the beginning of every conversation and Zoom had to start with some reference to COVID? And I feel like that's where we're at right now. And there was a moment when I was like, oh, I think like we had a change and we were slowly getting away from it. And I'm like, I think I just had a conversation and I didn't mention COVID once. Oh, okay. Maybe that's slowly getting to be behind us. We're definitely not at that point with AI yet. It's definitely, for me and probably for you, part of every conversation you have. Maybe not so much with your kids, but my kids are talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah. My kids are spending a lot of time with ChatGPT these days. It's their mentor.
Well, let's first start really broad, and let's start talking about where it is, because I feel like everybody immediately goes to ChatGPT. Let's talk more broadly about what other platforms there are that are AI or AI driven, and AI search also, which is a separate kind of category. And let's start by explaining how you would explain to your grandma or grandparent what it is and how it's different from Google.
Yeah. So for the 5% of the audience that has never used ChatGPT before, it's a large language model. And so the biggest difference is it's conversational.
Yes.
So instead of typing in a keyword, you're talking to it. And the best way to use it is to talk to it the way you would talk to a human. You give it the context, you explain what you need from it, and it's a great way to get information, to brainstorm, to have it review something, to do a first draft of something.
So do you use the voice version? Because this is, I think, a difference between me and my kids' generation. Do you use the voice version or do you type?
No, I only use the voice version if I'm with my kids.
Exactly. I think this is one of those things. Towards the end of the show, I always like to talk about like, where do you see it going? Especially, I think in AI, we'll have a more in-depth conversation about like next 6 months, next year, whatever. But this is going to be a difference, I think, between generations in terms of how much of the voice search that people are comfortable using. I almost solely type, but my daughter has like a full relationship with her ChatGPT guy that lives in there. And when she goes in there, he's like, hey, how you doing today? And, do you want to pick up where you left off? And she's got this British accent on him, and it's a male, which I actually really enjoy because I like taking automated devices and making them not automatically female. And I keep seeing over and over in articles that is the way forward. And that is the kind of thing that we're going to need to start paying more attention to in terms of optimization and, allowing our content to be more easily read vocally by these AI search LLMs.
100%. Yeah, it's more natural to talk, right? You
Yeah.
would never type to your friend that was sitting next to you. I don't use the voice mode, but I almost never type. If I can avoid typing, I will. So I use something called Whisper Flow on my computer. It just lets me hold down 2 keys on my keyboard and talk. And then it doesn't only transcribe my words, it cleans it up. So if I like misspeak and say something twice, it'll clean it all up.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much time it saves me.
Yeah, I use all Apple devices. So for me, the equivalent would be Siri, and I just can push the button. And so the difference that we're describing is Siri's just kind of taking my words, or your Whisper Flow is taking your words. It is, fixing the typos and whatever, but it really is just like a text to typing it out. The other thing that I'm talking about is if you have the ChatGPT app, and they have this in the other LLMs too, there is an option where you're actually having a conversation vocally with it. And I also saw this, aside from my kid, on a YouTube channel with someone who's of a different generation than me, who's a little younger. And they're just asking for like recipe advice. Can I cook XYZ with XYZ? Or can you give me some ideas, whatever? And they're having this conversation with it as opposed to typing it out. And there's something interesting about it. And so I encourage everybody to at least give that a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that's going to be more and more common.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you're trying to get from it. Usually if I'm using it, I'm trying to get some kind of deliverable. I want a PDF or an article or a list that I can then use somewhere else. So for that, voice isn't great. But yeah, I do think we're getting to a point where large language models are like the GPS for life.
Yeah.
Like where we used to have an internal map of at least the city we lived in and know like where things are. And now, because of GPS, we don't, right?
You don't need to know where everything is. It's like, okay, the map will take me there.
Yeah. And so I think we're getting to a point where, like, whether it's ChatGPT or another large language model, we're going to have an algorithm that's so advanced, so smart, so in tune with what we want that we're going to stop making decisions altogether and just do whatever I'm sure there's going to be some decisions, but I think it's, like Netflix and TikTok already took away our decision making in terms of what we're going to watch for entertainment.
Right.
I think this is just going to expedite that to more and more of our decisions being made by some kind of algorithm.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in the short term, it's these little decisions like between X and Y, when X and Y are somewhat similar answers, and it's just helping you get to that easier answer faster or filling in a blank. But I think as we kind of start to see it get, better and better, it's, it's not the simple answers anymore. It's getting more and more complex. Okay. Well, how would you explain an AI search campaign to someone who's never even considered this? And why is it any different than a Google SEO campaign?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe before I jump into that, I could just clear up any skepticism about, should you care? Like, why do I care
that
about
is definitely a place to start. Like, why should I even ask this question?
Yeah, and it's a fair question right now because most people still use traditional Google search when they're looking for an attorney, but it's changing very quickly. And you had asked about other large language models other than ChatGPT. Google has their own large language model, Gemini.
Yep.
Far fewer people have heard of it, but I think
because they keep changing the name.
Yeah, it was really called Bard. Yeah, so I think Gemini is a better name, but I think the reason why Google could still come out on top is because Google has distribution right now.
Yeah,
it's
they
Google.
got a lot of money.
Yeah, it's Google. Yeah, traditional Google search gets way more traffic than ChatGPT even today. Right. And Google has something called AI mode. It's now a separate tab. So if you're in Google search, you can click AI mode, and suddenly you're getting responses like you would get in ChatGPT. And Google has already said that their plan is to make that the default.
Yeah.
So sometime in the next 1 to 3 years, You go to Google, you're looking at a large language model.
Yeah.
And at that point, where you rank in traditional search really isn't going to matter much.
Right.
Except for the fact that when you talk to a large language model, they use a traditional search engine to recommend you.
Right. So they're using those search results to recommend you. However, the one thing I keep coming back to is Neil Patel runs a massive SEO agency, but he does a lot of videos and I highly recommend his content in general. But he talks a lot about the not it being SEO, being search engine optimization, but search everywhere optimization. And he was in one of his videos recently talking about how, yes, Google does command the majority of search engine search, but that's not where decisions are being made. And so when you start to think about how you make a decision, let's say I use examples of hotels a lot because we travel. So let's say I'm looking to go to a new city. I'm not just going to go to Google and take the first answer for what Google thinks is the best hotel, because there are so many variables in my judgment of what is the right hotel for me. I do not like big major brands. I want it to be in a certain location. I want it to have good food. I want it to look certain, whatever my requirements are. It's probably not going to be that first Google result. So I may take a couple of those options and then start researching them. My decision is not going to be made there in the Google results. It's going to be made maybe on TripAdvisor, maybe on a blog post, maybe on TikTok. Maybe there's some little TikTok video of some really amazing hotel that all of a sudden I'm like, that's it. Bam, done. Let's book it. So in my mind, when I started hearing him talk about this, where the decisions are being made, that is where I had a big kind of brain transfer in terms of how to think about this stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing is large language models are looking in all those places
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly. So it all feeds together.
Yeah, yeah. And I think right now, when someone does research online, they're going to multiple websites and they're reading the content.
Yeah.
But a lot of us that use large language models every day don't do research that way anymore because it doesn't feel necessary anymore. And I think just like we were talking about how large language models become the GPS for life, I think we're going to see this transition to when someone says, I researched it, we'll just know they meant they asked ChatGPT. And ChatGPT went and did the research and brought back all the information.
By you mean whatever you call ChatGPT, if you have a little nickname for him, her, it. So what are these kind of signals that you can give to your LLM, ChatGPT, I was going to say Bard because you mentioned that a minute ago, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, whatever platform you're using, what are the signals that you as a law firm can put out there in order to show up when someone is researching, let's say, a DUI lawyer in North Carolina?
Yeah, so I think the key to this answer is understanding what the large language model does when you do a search. So like we said before, the large language model is going to use a search engine. So if I go and I give it all the information about that hotel and I say, I want to avoid big brands. I kind of want to be in this area. This is my price range. These are the things I want to do. The first thing that ChatGPT or AI mode is going to do is a series of searches. And this has led a lot of SEOs to say, well, then all that matters is SEO, right? If they're just going to search a search engine, then nothing changes.
Then you're good. Yeah, you're set as long as you've got some kind of SEO strategy.
Yeah, I hear this a lot, and it's completely untrue because
Wrong.
The way that yes, it is. It's just, and if you look at the sources, they're like 80% different. The way the large language models search is not the way humans search. So, like you said before, you might type, hotels in San Francisco to kick off your Google research, and you might click on the top 3 results. ChatGPT is going to do much more specific searches and probably about a dozen of them. Same with Google's AI mode. It's going to say, hotels in San Francisco that aren't a big brand, lesser known, hidden gems in San Francisco hotels. These searches that humans normally wouldn't even do. So it's surfacing websites that weren't getting traffic before. And we can talk about how to be one of those websites. But then it's also going way deeper. Instead of just looking at the top 3 results, it's looking at page 2, page 3, page 4 of results. And so it's going much broader. And so the key to showing up is to understand which pages are most likely to be referenced by this process, and then have your brand on there. It doesn't need to be your website that ranks. It doesn't need to be linking to your website. It just needs to be mentioning your brand somewhere on the page. ChatGPT or Google is going to pull that information into the same context that you put your question in, and that's what it's going to use to make its recommendation.
Okay, so let's go back to a minute ago you said it doesn't need to be your website. And I know what you're kind of referencing there, because I talked about this in the Clio webinar, that the difference between kind of old and now, before times and the now times, was that you just wanted to kind of show up on some kind of ranking on Google. And now it's even better to have other brands mentioning your firm. So you get sort of the extra boost of that validation from another brand. So obviously one of the most obvious and, quickest things that I can think of that would align with this is to have some press. So if you have a big, splashy case and you end up on CNN, or you write an article for Forbes, or, something like along those lines, great. Now that is probably going to rank really well on Google, and then ChatGPT is going to find that as well. What are other ways that kind of align with what you were alluding to there in terms of having your firm's name show up on other sites or other search results?
Yeah, so there are websites that are very easy to get onto, and then websites that are more difficult. So the easiest ones are going to be directories.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Google, they'll look at a lot of directories, so you want to make sure you're there. And then a lot of these directories will create pages because of Google, like best attorney in city, or best personal injury attorney in city. And then they'll rank them. Sometimes you can pay to move up in the ranking. Sometimes it's based on how many reviews you get.
Yeah. So this could be something like Avvo. This could be something like Super Lawyers. It could be those kinds of directories that you pay for. Or it could just be very broad general directories that your SEO team is working on for you. Or it's a combination of all of the above.
Yeah. So that's where I always recommend starting. And some directories get cited more than others.
Right.
So there are tools now that'll show you which directories are getting cited the most. That might be beyond what most attorneys are going to do.
No, but your SEO person should be able to know that and kind of give you a list of the way to know which directories and sites and all that stuff are higher in demand. First of all, some of these things you're just going to be familiar with. If it's Forbes and CNN and that kind of stuff, like obviously they have a higher clout and they have a higher ranking in terms of what Google is how they're going to push them up in the results. The other thing I recommend all the time, which is relevant to this show, is showing up on podcasts, writing for other relevant topics. And this is something that is much more feasible and for most kind of small to mid-sized firms, more likely to happen. So find a complementary blog or podcast that you can show up on. An example would be, let's say you're an estate planning attorney and you have a relationship with some financial advisors that, you kind of feed each other business. And one of them has a podcast or a, well-ranking blog. Something like that can be huge. And, that could be a sole source of a ton of traffic. So it doesn't have to be like I'm, showing up on CNN or I'm nothing. There's a lot of other options in the middle where they can be, really successful depending on your practice area, your geographic region, and what you're doing.
100%. Yeah, I think there's really three categories of content that can help you get ranked. There's what you can put on your website. There's what you can put on social media sites. Those two you have complete control over, and there's nothing preventing you from doing it. So that's usually the easiest place to start. And then there's these third-party websites.
Yeah.
Directories are easy, but everything else is going to require some kind of PR effort, or you're going to bribe someone to put you on the top of their listicle.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of your own content, I couldn't agree more with what you said. Podcasts are great, not just because you're getting access to their audience, but also because video content right now is just gold.
That is so amazing, because like the next thing that slides right into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is video content. So let's talk about the difference and how it works in terms of LLMs and what they are finding and seeking and kind of pulling forward, as opposed to how you approach it for humans.
Yeah. So I'll start with the story. I just had a client a few weeks ago. I gave him a big proposal for a website, and he was going back and forth on it. And he called me and he said, I didn't know about it because it was a big price tag. So I went to ChatGPT and I asked it about you. And it convinced me right there that you were the right choice. And I have no idea what it said to him.
Right. I've had a handful of those too. And the very first lead that I had that actually scheduled a call, because I mean, you assume by the time you've got one person scheduling a call, you've had other people see you in a LLM result. But the first one that did, I was like, okay, you weren't exactly a perfect fit. But the main reason I scheduled a call with you is because I wanted to hear what you typed in, what it said. And they laughed, and then they told me. So I was like, okay, interesting.
That's great. Yeah, as soon as I got off that phone call, I went and I ChatGPT'd
of course.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like
it
you're muting it halfway through the call and you're like typing it in. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but what was interesting and relevant to the social media point is just that it referenced my TikTok, it referenced my LinkedIn, my YouTube, things I'd done on Reddit, podcasts I've been on. And this is when I'd only done content for 2 months.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, I think, and video is the key. Podcasts is one way to do it. The way I do it is while I'm walking my dog every day, I pull out my phone and I do a short video.
That's it. And the shorts are killing it. The shorts, in case you didn't know, is the equivalent of the vertical TikTok style video that you also see on Instagram called Reels, but on YouTube, it's called Shorts.
Yeah. And the best thing is all those platforms you mentioned can host the video. So
it's the same size. So you can take the one video and plop it in all 3 places.
Yeah, you can put it in, Facebook, you can put it on X, you can put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But then also you can use that transcript. So that transcript can be repurposed into a blog post, into a newsletter, into, a Medium article, into a LinkedIn article. And so right now I spend about 30 minutes a day on content creation, and I post 10 pieces of content every day.
Easily 10. I mean, if you wanted to, you could slice that up and probably do 2 pieces a day and, over a week and have 14 to 20, I mean, you could, if you really wanted to push it, but 10 pieces out of, 30, but your recording is how long? It's less than a minute, right?
I actually do 3 minutes on average.
Okay.
I try to keep them below 3 minutes because YouTube Shorts have to be less than 3 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, I'm usually right around there.
Yeah. So you take a few minutes of talking into a camera, which I know is painful for some people, but like you can take that and pull out so much gold and content and like just throw it on all of your platforms. I really think it's one of the best ways and it's your unique content. You're not like working within the confines of some other template on a platform or, any of that stuff. So, okay. So video content, gold, we take it, we throw it on YouTube, and then we put it on all of those short versions for, we take little clips out of this podcast and put it on all of the social media. We put it on the website, and then we will embed little clips sometimes in blog posts, and we just are constantly referencing it because it's my content. And, why would I not use my own content as opposed to a stock photo or something? It's just going to be so much more compelling. Okay, so what else should lawyers be considering in terms of how to trigger the LLM to find them?
I think the first thing you should be doing is adding the kinds of pages to your website that these large language models tend to reference before they make a recommendation.
Okay.
And so those are, the easiest one is best injury attorneys in city, or, best attorneys for X.
Yeah.
And they might feel kind of spammy, but ChatGPT doesn't care. It doesn't care that it's on your website.
Right.
They will find it, and
there's no emotion here. This is just pure logic.
Yeah, and because they just return the segment. So the web tool will crawl that page. They'll see your number one. They won't even connect the dots that it's on your website. They'll just pull that back and say, this is the number one. Yeah. Now, you're going to be one of many listicles, so you're competing there, but it's well worth the time it takes.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is you can do alternative pages. If you don't mind upsetting some of your competitors, you can do alternatives to competitor name or your name versus their name.
So if you
Large
were
language models
Coke, you
love
would
those.
say alternatives to Pepsi. And then, you would have the article be about why Coke is better than Pepsi. Obviously substituting law firm names for those. So I have been doing this for, I think, going on to 17 years. So for a long time, I pretty much owned the best law firm website search result for years. And then obviously that's high demand. So not only were other agencies kind of coming for that search result, but they were coming for me, my name specifically. Like I had to make sure that I was protecting my name as well as my firm name, as well as that, search result. And they have articles about alternatives to Carn Conroy and alternatives to Conroy Creative Counsel and that kind of stuff. And it's interesting to see that when the first time you see that people are out there trying to like just come for you, it's a little bit jarring, but it's a good sign. It's kind of like that thing that you learn in high school where it's no, when he really likes you. Yeah. That's a compliment when they act that way, where it's like initially you're like, that's a little harsh. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that lawyers should never ask ChatGPT?
Never ask ChatGPT.
Or never. I guess the question could also be like something that they shouldn't do in terms of like their overall strategy.
Yeah. You can't trust ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah.
ChatGPT is incredibly valuable and you can't trust it. You should think of it as like a genius intern.
Yes.
Like it's very smart, but it doesn't have all the context that it should have.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's going to hallucinate. It's going to read something that's online and it's just going to believe it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can't use it as a final draft. You can't use it for like fact checking.
Yeah.
There are better tools for that. But you should treat it like someone on your team.
Like a low-level person on your team. In terms of the relationship with your clients and all of that, it's also not impossible, but hard to have it convey your tone and, the kind of humanness. I had someone at the end of the Clio webinar ask me, well, how do you feel about ChatGPT just writing blog posts for me? And I thought, have you been like, I had a lot to say. I thought that was going to be like a question at the beginning. That's where a lot of people are starting. I haven't really been keeping up with my blog, and they're still feeling like the blog post is the entire SEO strategy, which I have a lot to say about that too, but that's probably a different episode. But where do people go wrong with that? And why is that not the way to look at it as like just a free blog post writer?
So I actually think it can be a free blog post writer. It's hard to get there. And you're right, this could be a whole episode, but I'll try to give the short version. I think the core of our agency right now is building something we call a brand ambassador for each client.
Okay.
And this is a project in Claude, which is like ChatGPT. And it has all the information there is to know about the client. It has every transcript from every video they've ever made, which is another reason why videos are so great. It might have 100 different things that the pieces of content that this client has written. So it knows their words. And it has guidance on how to do things like write a blog post, write a social media post. And so they're hard to build. It's hard to construct it in a way where the large language model is getting what it needs. But when you provide the context and you provide the scaffolding to know when to reference each piece of context, it can do remarkably well at writing a blog post that sounds just like you wrote it and it's optimized for search.
Yeah.
Write a new web page, respond to this Twitter comment the way that I would respond to it. And so that's where we put most of our effort because I think it's well worth it. It's like you said, it's hard to get it there.
Right.
If you just go and say, write a blog post on this, it's going to be generic and bad and no one will ever want to read it.
But it's going to have a lot of M dashes.
Yeah,
we do something similar also. And what we're describing, a lot of people are calling these agents. So you can have an agent or a custom GPT, or there's different names for this. But in Claude, it's called a project, I think, right? In ChatGPT, it's like a custom GPT. And there's different ways you can do this. One thing I use a custom GPT agent, whatever you want to call it for, is for these podcast episodes where it's going to help me. It's going to help me. And I'm just going to underline that twice. It's going to help me start to create an episode. And it saves me some time in terms of coming up with the show title. And it starts by giving me like 50. And I would never have it just come up with a show title and then run with it, because I look at all 50 and I'm like, at least 35 to 40 of them are garbage. And then there's one in there that's, this one's okay. And then this one's okay. And we're going to mix these together. And then, I'm going to kind of massage it to get to the point where I'm happy with something. But giving me that list of 50 to start is saving me a ton of time. And so that's one thing. It does a whole bunch of other things related to every podcast episode, and it saves me hours and hours for every podcast episode. But I am in there working with it. It's not just like I hit a button and bam, there's a podcast episode. There's a whole bunch of interaction that I put in order to make sure that like it's maintaining that this is my podcast. I'm there. My face and tone and voice and words and the way that I do things are all in there, but it's just done easier and faster.
Yeah, I think this is the key to making marketing work with large language models, is creating these projects. So yeah, I do the same thing. I have one just for Reddit, one just for my video titles and descriptions, one for LinkedIn, and it can just, here's the transcript, spits out a LinkedIn post, I make a few edits, and we're good to go.
Right. Okay, so tell me about the future. Let's talk, like, where do you see it? Because, okay, as of right now when we're recording, and this will be, live in the next few weeks, so it won't be like that big of a gap, but ChatGPT 5 just came out, and which is, to me, I've already noticed a big kind of leap, especially in mobile. But tell me where you see, like, the next 6 months. Do you anticipate, some other big leap? And then maybe 2 to 5 years from now, what do you see happening, and what should people be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think my prediction is the same as it would have been 2 years ago. Is I think people are going to be disappointed in the short term, and their minds are going to be blown in the long term, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's so true, because everybody, and me included, I spend a lot of time talking to my neighbors about, like, why are we not like the Jetsons yet? Why do we not have, what's the robot in the house?
Betty.
Yeah, something like that. Why do we not have it where you wake up and you go into that little tube and you stand there and it just does everything for you? Like, it showers you, does your hair, does the whole thing, and you just have to stand there, like, even with your eyes closed. And then, so anyway, I think that's, everybody sees something like that and they assume, like, by next week, it's going to be the Jetsons, right? And then it's, like you said, there's a little level of disappointment there, because it's like, these things take time. There's some infrastructure we have to build into the world with all of these things.
Yeah. So yeah, I think in 6 months from now, we'll have a slightly better version of ChatGPT. It'll be able to do a few more cool things.
Yeah.
We'll have some better software. But yeah, I mean, 2 to 5 years, it's really hard to predict that far out right now, because it's moving so fast. And I think the key thing to understand there is that whatever you're doing right now on your computer is going to be dramatically different. If you're not keeping up with this, if you're not adapting to the new tools and using them, I know this sounds cliche, but you are going to be left behind. Maybe not in 6 months, but 2 to 5 years from now, you'll be like someone who refused to start using a computer.
Yeah.
Except it's happening at 10 times the rate as the computer. And
I was just picturing while you were saying that, if you sliced up a daily time, like the time a typical lawyer spends daily, especially on their computer, a huge percent, probably, well over 50% is in the emails and kind of sending messages back and forth. And I don't even, probably in kind of doing some research. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't guess. But if you imagine what your day looks like right now, if you slice up that pie, some emails, doing research, kind of pursuing new business, following up with clients, that kind of stuff. Whatever that big chunk of, especially emails and very administrative, all of that kind of gross, stuff that we all dread, I predict that kind of stuff is going to go away more and more and more, because it's just going to be so much more automated. What do you see in terms of, like, basic daily stuff?
Yeah, I think that's coming too. It's really hard to see the shape of it. So Google already will recommend pretty good responses. I think it's just in the last few weeks they've come out with these longer responses that I find myself using about half the time.
Right. Yeah. In the beginning, I was like, what? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And then like I double checked to make sure that, okay, for sure did not send, because that was a disaster. But now it has like significantly improved.
Yeah. And so that'll continue, but it has to shift in a fundamental way, because it just doesn't have context. So it doesn't know, it's not hooked up to your CRM or your database where it has all that context. And so that's the missing piece. And I'm sure we're going to start seeing software that
I've
makes
already
it easier
started
and easier.
seeing it. There's one that I just came across called Little Bird, and it's for Mac only. And you just install it on your desktop, and it starts to kind of watch your workflow, and then it gives you suggestions of what you should do next. And I've been just trying it out, so I can't recommend it necessarily. But that idea where you've got something running in the background and it's watching what you're doing, both between like your email and maybe, for me, it's like a project management system and the various tabs I have in my browser. And at one point it was like, you started paying that bill and then you forgot to finish it, and you might want to go back. And I was like, thank you very much.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like the more technical savvy listeners will say, oh, you can already do this. You can already hook up Claude to your Notion with an MCP server, and you can, but it's not easy for the average
Right. This
person,
is very
right?
user friendly. This one, of course, is very like Mac looking, very clean. And so that's part of it too, is to have this little kind of what feels like a little person sitting up in the corner of your screen, just kind of watching and being like, hey, sort of tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, what's this thing over here that you forgot to finish? Or I saw that there's this email over here that you really need to get to today, stuff like that. Okay, so it is time for the book review. So
Great.
If you have not taken a look, we have an extensive thought leaders library on the website where all of our guests have recommended a book each episode. They're all over the place. One person recommended Alice in Wonderland and tied it all in and made it make sense. But usually they're business books. They relate to what we're talking about. So TJ, what's the book that you're going to recommend for the library today?
I recently reread The Dip by Seth Godin. I read it when it first came out, when I was just getting started in business. And I felt like it was even more true today. One of the core messages of the book is that all the spoils go to number one. Oh. There's an outsized return to whoever's the number one in their field or their niche. And so that you should, if you can't be number one, you should subdivide your niche until you can be number one and find that specialization.
I love that. Sorry to interrupt, but in business school, that was your first mover's advantage. And when you are that number one, everybody else is scrambling to either do what we talked about earlier and sort of compete and try to offer themselves as an alternative to you, or, do something slightly different. But there's always this slight reference to you, the number one. And there's an advantage there in being number one that drips through all of those other messages that you can almost not monetize, but a lot of people do. But whatever that number one position can be for you, even if it's very narrow, own it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's going to be more true too with AI advancing, because what's happening, we've already seen low-level work be handled by AI, but as
it's gone.
Mid-level work gets handled by AI, and even some senior level work, everything's going to get commoditized. Everyone's going to be offering the same thing because they're all going to be using the same AI software to do it for them. And the only people that will be able to charge a premium are the people at the very top who can still reliably produce something better than someone just using AI can produce. And so I think you either have to be the most efficient at using the same AI tool as everyone else is using, or you have to find a way to offer premium service that other people can't match.
And let's be serious. Like, if you're an amazing lawyer and you've been doing this for years and you've got this skill and expertise and you've got years of legal experience, cannot be competed with. So I feel like that didn't grammatically sound right, but
made sense to me.
So if you have been, doing this for 15 years and you've got this knowledge of who you need to go to in the court system, or, things that you've learned through all of these cases that you've done, that is going to be something that people come to you, and that is what you should be optimizing for. And that is something that a brand new lawyer can't compete with. They can try to, lower their prices. They can try to offer something different as an alternative to you, but they can't compete with 15 years of experience and successful experience, hopefully.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and I think AI just multiplies that. Like
Exactly.
the better you understand your field, the more advantage you're going to get from using AI to, increase your output.
Yeah. Okay, so the book is The Dip by Seth Godin. We'll obviously link to that on the show page, throw that into the library as well. All right, so TJ, after people listen to this episode, what's the first thing they should do? Let's give them an action item. It could be something that they'll just kind of think about in terms of AI, or something that they should actually do after they listen to the whole thing completely and get to the end and give me the full download.
Yeah, they should pull out their phone and answer one of the questions they find themselves answering all the time. Just say, people are always asking me this, and this is what I say.
Yes.
And just record the video. And you don't even have to post a video if you don't want to, but just get over that hurdle. See how easy it is to make a video. The good thing about the algorithms these days is if the video is terrible, if it's like super cringe, no one's going to see it anyways. It's just going to fall flat. People only see your good ones, which is...
Yeah. Well, and find the place that makes the most sense to post that also. But don't be shy to post it on the multiple platforms. Like we said, that vertical video can easily go on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook stories, and YouTube shorts. The same video can go on each of them, and answering those questions, the most commonly asked, frequently asked question type thing, how to XYZ, why I'm the best XYZ lawyer in XYZ city, those kinds of things that seem very basic and might be things that you're answering over and over are the best things to be starting with.
Yeah, 100%. And they're the ones that you already have a really good answer for that might sound boring to you, but will be profound.
But you've practiced. And so because you've practiced it, it shouldn't be so cringe, hopefully.
It's your first 10 videos are probably going to be a little cringe, but it's like you just gotta do it. I always say it is a skill talking naturally in the camera, but it's a skill you probably already have. You're already going on Zoom calls. You're already doing FaceTime. Just put yourself in that mindset.
Yeah. Just don't do the embarrassing like kissy face thing, and don't try too hard. Just do it.
Yeah.
Get it out there and get over that hurdle of the first 5 or 10 of them. And then you're going to start to get really good. So just do those first 5 or 10, get them out of the way. And then realize that you'll kind of get a rhythm of it, and they're going to start to probably be better than those first couple ones.
You'll get very fast feedback because most of your views will come in the first 24 hours. And so you'll know right away, even if you're getting 5 views on each video and then you get 25. Okay, cool.
Great.
I like that one a little bit more.
Right. If you walked into a networking event and you only talked to 1 or 2 people, you'd feel, okay, all right, at least I did that. But if you walked in and all of a sudden 25 people came over to talk to you, you'd be like, whoa, what is happening? And, if you picture these people in real life, that many people showing up to listen to what you have to say, that's a good deal. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's well worth the time.
Awesome. TJ Robertson is the founder of TJ Digital, which is focusing on the topic of the day, AI search. And we will link to all of your stuff on the show page. But thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you so much for having me, Karin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the CounselCast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.